Welcome to chapter 17 of the book of 1 Samuel. It's been a while since I did a video. A month has passed by, and the reason for that was because I had a health problem. Sent me to the emergency room a couple of times in 2 weeks, and it had to do with my nose. It was nothing real great, but it set me back. I was supposed to rest, and I did somewhat until I received an email from Steve Morrison, and Steve was working on an application that the Apostolic Bible would use. That would be the main thing. It's an Apostolic Bible app. So, in the middle of this, I received the information on the app, and let me show you what all has taken place since then. Here is the first page when you open up. It's apostolicbibleapp.com, and the first page is an introduction page. You can see it has a new page, and then it has the book and chapter, and then this is all information on all the different parts of the app. Now we're in Genesis right here, and you go and check. You can go here and find any book of the Bible, Apostolic Bible, and here we'll go to chapter 1, and here it is. Chapter 1. It's really great. I mean, what he did is fantastic. As you pull the screen across, it shrinks the left side here. Now you see the right side, and there's nothing in there, but if you go over here and you click, let's say, the second word, archi, and hit it, then the Comprehensive Concordance Greek pane opens up, and you'll see all the different words under 746 beginning, archi. It should have started off right at the beginning, at the top. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but he's still working on it. But now also, so now instead of the Strong's number, we'll go to the English word underneath, beginning, and then it opens up the Comprehensive Concordance English pane, and here we have beginning and the number 746 when they appear together. So you can now go through here and pull this across and look. I'm going to go back to the Greek. I like it better. So here we have all the places that this word appears. And here it is in the beginning in Genesis 1:1. You can now see, go through this, and you can, it's like the lexical concordance in the back of the Apostolic printed edition. Now it's like a comprehensive concordance where you can see all the words around it, find the different Greek spellings or the different parsings of it, and so forth. And one other feature that it has is, let's say you go find one down below, right here, 4020. You hit 4020, and it will go over to that 4020 verse in the chapter pane. You can also do English searches in the search bar. And if you want to start a new study, but keep this one, you just hit New Pane, and it will open up at the beginning, just like the first one. And then you can go and look in, let's say, Revelation 20:21. There it is. And then you can go and find any word in here. And you can enlarge it, you can copy, paste. Oh, it's just amazing. You can also copy a word and then save it. Now, there's no action yet for the Greek word. I'm hoping Steve will put together a link to the analytical lexicon where, let's say, you hit the word and it would tell you it, over here, it would have the parsing of it. If it's a verb, it would tell you as a verb or a preposition, and so forth. So this is what happened in the month that I was growing all this hair. They were still in the shutdown. This is June the 1st, almost the end of it. And I couldn't get a haircut. I still haven't been able to find a place to get a haircut. So now I'm going to put those down, and then go back to the chapter 17 where we're going to start. Now, this is probably one of the most famous chapters in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Goliath. And y'all know the story, but we're going to go through it here. It begins, and the Philistines gathered together. The synagogue, a synagogue is a gathering together, like the ecclesia is also, for the church, is a gathering. And so the Philistines that were over next to the Mediterranean, where the Gaza Strip is today, and the Palestinians gathered together in their camps for war. Polemics, it's a derivative. And they gathered together at Socoh of Judea and camped in between Socoh and between Azekah in Ephes Dammim. I didn't go and find out exactly where it was because it's not really too important, because most of the story is has nothing to do with where they were too much. And Saul and the men of Israel gathered together, and they camped in the valley of the terebinth tree. These here and these there. And they deployed for war right opposite the Philistines. And the Philistines stood upon the mountain here on that side. And Israel stood upon the mountain here on this side. And Israel would be the eastern side, and Philistines on the western side. And the canyon was between them, a low spot. And there came forth a mighty man, Thanatos, dynamite comes from the dynastics and so forth, from out of the battle array of the Allophelon, the Philistines. Goliath, and that's the Goliath, was the name to him. He's from out of Gath, which is one of the cities of that area over towards the Gaza Strip. And his height was 4 cubits and a span, and that 18 inches for a cubit. He was 6'6". And now today there's a lot of people that are bigger than that, but at that time apparently, if you go to a lot of ancient civilizations, the people weren't very tall. I went to a place, Mesa Verde National Park in the United States, and cliff dwellings, and people are only 4 feet tall. 4 foot 5 inches, fairly small, and they had grips for your hands and feet. But if you're 6 foot tall, you couldn't do it because you'd be off balance. But here with these people, they were able to span and climb up in these little holes in the cliff to get up to the cliff dwelling. So the possibility that the Jewish people at that time were not very tall. And this Goliath, 6'6", would be huge. I went down to Brazil a few years back. I'm only 6 foot tall, and the people there in the town I was in, Lorena, they called me the giant. Well, I wasn't, 6 foot tall. I don't consider myself a giant. But if you're shorter, then I suppose you do. But he had a bronze helmet, a pericephalea, a halki, the Chalcolithic age, Bronze Age, was upon his head, kephalis, and a chest plate, the thorax comes from that, of chainwork he put on. And the weight of his chest plate was 5,000 shekels of brass, of iron, and at the shekel, what they figure it would be, it would have made it 125 pounds. So that's a lot of weight to carry around as for protection. And his leg coverings were of brass upon his legs, and a shield of brass was between his shoulders, and the shaft of his spear was as the weaver's beam of one weaving, and their big long poles, and his lance was 600 shekels of iron. That means it was 15 pounds. And carrying around a lance is 15 pounds. It's pretty heavy. And the one lifting his weapons went before him. Opla, the hoplites, were the infantry of the Greeks, time of Alexander. And he stood and yelled out to the battle array of Israel and said to them, "Why are you come forth to deploy for battle right opposite us? Am I not a Philistine, and you are Hebrews of Saul? Choose for yourself a man and let him come down to me. And if he should be able to battle against me and strike me, then we will be to you for bondmen. But if I shall overpower him and shall strike him, you will be to us for bondmen, and you shall serve us." And the Philistine said, "Behold, I berate the battle array of Israel today, in this day. Give to me a man, and we will fight both 1-on-1. And Saul heard, and all Israel, these sayings of the Philistine. And they were startled and feared greatly. Phobia, when you see that, it has to do with fear. So they were startled, afraid of this man, is huge, and had all this armor and everything. He was a warrior. And David was his son. Now, it's just strange because it sounds like we haven't met David before, but yet in chapter 16 it talks about Samuel's going to Bethlehem and anointing David and choosing him. And then the last part of the 16th chapter was David going and playing the stringed instrument for Saul. But it sounds like it's almost like two different stories. And it says here, and David was the son of an Ephrathite, now still of the tribe of Judah, not of Ephraim. This one was from out of Bethlehem, Judah. And the name to him was Jesse. And to him were 8 sons, and we went through this in the last chapter, and Samuel looking for the one to anoint. And the man was old in days of Saul arriving in the year. And the 3 sons of the 3 elder sons of Jesse went after Saul unto the war. And the name of his sons having gone unto the war, Eliab, his firstborn, and the second, Thevteros, Deuteronomy, so it comes from that. His name was Aminadab, and the third, Tritos, Samah. And David himself was the younger, and the 3 elder went after Saul. And David departed and returned from Saul to tend the sheep of his father in Bethlehem. So now it may have been he was there and played, and then he went back and to his father, and maybe who knows how much time went. Maybe Saul didn't remember him or anybody. And the Philistine came forward, rising early and arriving late. I don't know exactly arising early and arriving late, but that's what it says. And he set up before Israel. It may mean he stayed a long time. He set up before Israel 40 days. So this is going on for quite a while, over a month. And Jesse said to David his son, "Take indeed to your Adelphis brothers, Adelphia, of a city of brotherly love, an ephah of this toasted grain, and these 10 deca breads, and run unto the camp to your Adelphus brothers. And these 10 cheeses of the milk you shall bring to the commander of 1,000, and you shall visit your brothers," almost like a bribe, so you can go visit them. Bring this food to the commander, and he'll let them go to the front. So you shall visit your brothers concerning their peace. Find out how everything is. As much as they need, you shall know. So you can find out what they need, and we'll help them out. And Saul and they and every man of Israel in the valley of the oak were warring with the Philistines. So they were apparently still fighting, but staying away from Goliath. Or if they did come, then Goliath who? And David rose early in the morning, and left the sheep for guard, and took the things and departed as commanded to him by Jesse. And he came into the battle line, and the force going forth unto the battle array. And they shouted for war, and Israel deployed, and the Philistines deployed from the opposite of the battle array. So they're in the valley clashing. And David relieved his items from himself unto the hand of the provisions officer, the cheeses, and he ran to the battle array, and he came and asked his brothers the things for peace. So he shows up, and he's a young man, and of his speaking with them, that behold, a man, the middle one, ascended. Now here it gives a name again like you hadn't heard from it before. The name given to him was Goliath, the Philistine from out of Gath, from out of the battle array of the Philistines. And he spoke according to these words, and David heard, and maybe the words earlier. And every man of Israel, in their seeing the man, feared greatly and fled from his face. Nobody wanted to fight him. And a man from out of Israel said, well, did you see the man? This one ascending? Oh, he ascended so as to berate Israel. And it will be the man, whoever should strike him, the king will enrich him in great riches, and will give his daughter to him, and the house of his father he will make free in Israel. And I believe he means free of having to be taxed. That's my guess. And David said to the men standing with him, saying, well, what shall be done to the man whoever should strike that Philistine, and should remove scorn from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine who berates the battle array of the living God? And the people said to him, well, according to this word, saying, thus it shall be done to the man whoever should strike him. And Eliab, his older brother, heard in his speaking to the men, he's questioning him, and Eliab became angry with rage with David and said, why is this you came down, and for why did you leave those small sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and your evil of your heart. It's because seeing the war you came down. And David said, what did I do now? Is it not a word? His father told me. And he turned from him unto another rank, got away from his brother, and said thus. And they answered to him according to the word firmly, asked him about what's going to happen. And they heard the words of David which he spoke. But, who is this Philistine, uncircumcised Philistine, berating Israel? And they were announced before Saul. And David said to Saul, so apparently he has taken into the king, let not the heart of my master be downcast over him. Your bondman will go and do battle with this Philistine. Well, there's probably a lot of men that went and died, but this one, another one. Saul said to David, in no way shall you be able to go against this Philistine to battle against him. You're just a boy. And he's a man of war from out of his youth. Polemistes, you can add that to your English derivative book, it has to do with war, polemics. And David said to Saul, your bondman was tending for his father among the flock. And whenever the lion came and the bear, and it took a sheep from out of the herd, then I went forth after him, and I struck him, and I pulled it from out of his mouth. And if he rose up against me, I held his throat, and struck him, and put him to death. And your bondman beat the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be as one of these who berates the battle array of the living God. Boy, what a wonderful attitude towards anybody coming against God. Now, Jesus in the New Testament wants us to be humble, and but yet humbleness, and yet when somebody blasphemes God, humbleness doesn't always work. I have a hard time being humble if somebody blasphemes God. And David said, Kyrios, the Lord who rescued me from out of the hand of the Leontos, lion, and from out of the hand of the Arctos, the Arctic is the bear. He will rescue me from out of the hand of this uncircumcised Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord will be with you. in the imperative, go. And Saul clothed David with his uniform, and didn't want him to go out there looking like a peasant. Put his uniform on him, beautiful, probably blue and white, and put a brass helmet upon his head, and clothed him with a chest plate, just like Goliath. And David tied on his sword upon himself. And David, tired walking in the proceeding with them, for he was inexperienced. He didn't know how to put all this armor on, never did it before. And David said to Saul, "No way am I going to be able to go in these. I've not tested them," sort of an excuse. And they removed them from him. And he took his rod in his hand, and a staff, I suppose, and chose for himself 5 pentagon, 5-sided building in Washington, D.C., of smooth lethe stones from out of the rushing stream. And they're round and probably about an inch or so big, inch and a half maybe. And he put them in the shepherd's canteen, and being real smooth, when they slung them, they could really go well. So he put them in the shepherd's canteen, some type of a holder, being his for a collection of 5 of them. Now, why did he have 5? I don't know. And his sling was in his hand. So he had the slings were long leather straps, and at the end a little pouch type of a thing where they put the rock in it, and then they twirled it around, and they had two pieces of leather, and they had it where the one piece wouldn't let go, and the second piece of leather, when they let it go, then it would go flying, and the stone would go flying out as they swung it. They swung it like this, and then let it go, and off the rock went. It wasn't the kind that was like this, and you pull it back and you go bingo. That's a modern. I don't know if they don't even know if they call it a sling, but what do they call those things? Well, anyway. So anyway, he went forward to the man, the Philistine. And the Philistine went, going and approaching to David. And the man carrying the oblong shield was before him. And the Philistine looked. And Goliath beheld David, and he treated him with contempt, for he was a boy, and was of ruddy color, reddish, with beauty of eyes, probably blue. And the Philistine said to David, "Am I as a dog, that you come with a rod and stones?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. May the god Ashtoreth cause you to have this or that, bad things to happen. And the Philistine, he didn't say the bad words to him like, bad words. It wasn't that. It was a curse. And the Philistine said to David, "Well, come here to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the heaven and to the wild beasts of the earth." And David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a broadsword, and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to you in the name of the Kyrio Theou Sabaoth, the Lord God of hosts." That is the army, the Lord God of the army, the God of the battle array of Israel, whom you berate today. And the Lord shall shut you up today by my hand, and I will kill you, and I will remove your head from you, and I will give your carcass and the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines in this day to the birds of the heaven and to the wild beasts of the earth. And all the earth shall know that God is in Israel. And all the assembly shall know that it is not by broadsword and spear the Lord delivers, for the war is of the Lord, and the Lord shall deliver you into our hands. And the Philistine rose up and went, and approached to meet with David. And David hastened, ran towards him, and came forth even himself for the battle array for meeting the Philistine, running towards him. And David stretched out his hand into the canteen and took from there one stone, and he slung it. And he struck the Philistine, I get excited, in the forehead. It's a great story. And the stone penetrated into his forehead. He was an accurate thrower. And the Philistines fell upon his face upon the ground, knocked him out cold cocked him. And David powered over the Philistine with the sling and with the stone in that day. So this is how he knocked him out. And he struck the Philistine, and he killed him. And a broadsword was not in the hand of David. And David ran and stood over him, and took his broadsword and pulled it out from out of its sheath, and put him to death, and removed his head. And the Philistines beheld that their mighty one has died, and they fled. And the men of Israel, of Judah, rose up and shouted and pursued after the Philistines unto the entrance of Gath, where they ran in, locked the gate, and unto the gate of Akron, another city there by Gaza. And the slain of the Philistines fell in the way of the gates, and unto Gath and unto Ekron. And the men of Israel returned, turning aside, going after the Philistines. And they plundered their camps, all the places when they ran from. And David took the head of the Philistine, and he brought it unto Jerusalem. And his weapons he put in his tent, into David's own tent. And as Saul saw David going forth from meeting the Philistine, he said to Abner, the ruler of the force, here is strange, whose son is this young man, Abner? And so you would think he would have known because he was playing the harp earlier, so I don't know. And Abner responded and said, your soul should live, O my lord king, I know not. And the king said, will you ask whose son this young man is? And as David returned, having struck the Philistine, Abner received him and brought him in before Saul. And the head of the Philistine was in his hand. And Saul said to him, whose son are you? And David said, a son of your bondman Jesse of Bethlehem. So David now has killed Goliath, and we find out that he becomes famous in Israel, and that causes problems. And we'll find out about those problems in the next chapter, chapter 18. Hope you'll continue these video seminars, and pray that I will be in health and continue with them, get through the Old Testament in time. Till next time, God bless.